Today, we celebrate Father's Day, which got me thinking about human relationships. Now, let me say right up front that I understand that Father's Day and Mother's Day can be difficult for people who have experienced some suffering at the hands of all too fallible human parents. So I want to make sure that you understand that when I speak of parent today, I speak about the ideal parenthood that was modeled for us and continues to be modeled for us by God. The very first community that we know is our family. The first love that we know is from our mother, our life giver. And for many of us, the remembrance of being in our mother or father's arms is an experience of safety and of warmth and of love and true acceptance. For some, this may be the only acceptance that they've ever had at any time in their lives. I think that the good love of a parent may indeed be the closest physical approximation of God's tender and nurturing and overwhelming love that we will ever get in this world. As we get older, we move into different circles of community. We have our childhood friends, our schoolmates, our neighborhood, and our hometowns. We get jobs. We grow up. We begin to make value judgments and choose our friends as we can. And with every year that passes, our community expands and then sometimes contracts. God created humans to be in community with each other. Siblings in Christ's universal family, the family that Jesus died for. Now, certainly we all need our alone time in order to be able to spend time with God. But even then, that isn't really alone time. Because when we are engaged with God, we are actively participating in the community and the communion of the holy and triune God. Sitting in the presence of God the Father and Creator, God the Son and Eternal Word, and God the Spirit and our Sustainer. I think that one of the reasons that we have struggled so much over the last few months with the COVID-19 quarantine is that we are by nature called to be in community and to worship in community. As Christians and as human beings, we re-energize ourselves. We reignite each other's sparks from a little tiny ember into a burning flame. We encourage and lift one another up. Praying alone is a lovely and fulfilling and deeply moving experience. But until you have felt the power of a room full of people earnestly praying together for something that they firmly believe in and deeply need to have happen, you have missed one of the most powerful elements of prayer. Now, maybe it's the stress and the pressure of quarantine that has provided the impetus for change right now. Maybe we're rebelling at the fact that we are confined to just small spaces, sometimes in smaller groups of people. We seem to have more of a willingness right now to see people as people, regardless of their differences. We seem to perhaps have been surrounded by so much death and the threat of death and the disease that has instilled in us a deep fear that perhaps we're sensing a sense of value of human life. And I will tell you, once we begin to truly value one another, we are that much closer to being able to live together as a true community in God. The idea of the context of community goes back a long way. Reverend Walter Rauenbusch, who was a Baptist pastor and one of the main theologians of the American Protestant movement back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, defined the earthly kingdom of God as the organized fellowship of humanity acting under the impulse of love. What an amazing idea that community is founded and based on the act of loving each other. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., another Baptist pastor, went on to further elaborate on and articulate Rauenbusch's concept of the kingdom as community, coining the term the beloved community. In King's vision, the kingdom of God was a community where every single member was beloved by each other, where no one was marginalized or discriminated against, where all were treated equally and justly. In other words, it was, in his words, a mutually cooperative and voluntary venture of man to assume a semblance of responsibility for his brother. Dr. King envisioned a completely and inclusively integrated community, filled with all of the good things for all people. And these values are found, too, in the immortal words of our country's Declaration of Independence, where it states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." As beautiful as this vision is of the all-inclusive, beloved community and the kingdom of God, it's not going to be easy for us to get there. Humans have had over 5 millennia of splits and fractures, starting all the way back with Cain and Abel. Like all siblings, we don't always get along. We don't always agree. And despite what our loving parents want for us, we often allow ourselves to be split and fractured along the way. These splits and fractures are caused by differing opinions, selfishness, power, money, misunderstandings, jealousy, and ignorance. As Christians, Jesus charges us with bringing the kingdom of God to this earth. He gave us countless hints about what the kingdom of God is, and it all involved God being willing to seek the least of us, from the lost lamb to the lost coin, to people searching until they finally found what was right for them and what was just in the eyes of the Lord. And He made it our priority to bring this kingdom to earth. Now, over the years, we as Christians have developed a kind of a pie in the sky when you die image of what the kingdom of God is. And while that may accurately reflect the heavenly kingdom, where all of earth's trials and tribulations will be removed and we will sit in the presence of the Almighty each and every day, that's hardly what this world of toil and tribulation is. As difficult as it is, God does not remove our responsibility to continue to work towards bringing in His earthly kingdom of harmony and peace and justice and equality for all of God's children. Anyone who has given birth will tell you of the enormous exhaustion, physically and mentally, of the need to get this child born already, of the excited anticipation, the hopes, the dreams, the fears, the concerns, the possibilities inherent in a birth. And I think this may be where we are right now as a country. The changes that we're going through and have gone through have left us bruised and broken and weary and apprehensive and downright scared. Our minds tell us that this is the right thing. Our hearts tell us that this is the right thing. But we are still afraid. This is the point in time when we must hold on to Christ's strongest words, said over and over and over again in the gospel. Do not be afraid, and do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. And if it were not so, would I have gone before you to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, then I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way to the place where I am going, Jesus said. He goes on to say that he is the way and the truth and the life. No one will come to that heavenly kingdom of eternity without going through Jesus. And we can't go through Jesus without doing his work and living his will. We were created for community, and we are quite literally God's gift to each other. We are what makes life worth living, the companionship and the challenge that we provide to one another, the support, care, and comfort, the shared laughter and tears, and time spent together, the prayer time, the times of silence when we can sit and just be. Just as the Holy Trinity live in eternal companionship and love as a community, we are charged by God to also live in community and in love as human beings, to see each other as equally delightful and equal beings of worth and value. Today, we may be experiencing the birth pangs of the next evolution of God's beloved community, a precursor to ushering in the kingdom of God for all of God's people. We are exhausted. We are tired by what's been going on the last few months. We are apprehensive and frightened and exuberant and hopeful at the same time. We're confused. But God, our eternal parent, whose love and protection has been with us since the very dawn of creation, will be with us until the day that we enter into the kingdom of God, that beloved community where all humanity will be joined together as one. It is a beautiful dream. Let's go to work now to make it a reality. Amen.